For the majority of people on YouTube, quantitative finance isn't a particularly sexy topic, and therefore it's not a huge channel that I have. However, for those who are interested and those who really enjoy the topic of quantitative finance and mathematical finance, I try and put the best content that I possibly can out. But on my Twitter account, it's a little bit different. So if we see here my Twitter account, I started off trying to post irregularly, sporadically, and I wasn't getting much traction. So instead, I've decided to use the OpenAI ChatGPT to come up with better suggestions for what content I can put on Twitter. I then use the API to take these suggestions, generate content, engaging content that then I can post regularly using the Twitter API. So in this video, we're going to be going through that entire process and how you can actually do some prompt engineering, use the Jupyter notebooks that I have, and all the code I've put available on my GitHub repository, and the link is in the description. So if you want to automate your Twitter feed with whatever type of content that you're putting out, doesn't need to be quantitative finance, you can use my template in Jupyter Notebook, do your own prompt engineering, use the templates and change it, of course, for your topic that's unrelated to quantitative finance. So the GitHub repository, just for a bit of an overview of what this project is, I have this running on a Raspberry Pi cluster, but you could have it running on any server that you want. Essentially, all I'm doing is I'm using OpenAI ChatGPT to generate the Twitter post given a list of quantitative Python ideas. Now, how did I come up with these ideas? Well, I simply asked ChatGPT. So I told ChatGPT that I run a YouTube channel called QuantPy where I talk about quantitative finance. On this channel, I make tutorials where I break down complicated mathematics in finance and make it easy to digest. I made a spelling error, Python tutorials. The tutorials are practical and mostly under 20 minutes in length. So the response was really a nothing answer there. So I obviously didn't prompt ChatGPT very well, but it asked, how can I assist? Can you please help me further my channel and then provide me some content ideas? And see here, it's given me a list of content ideas for different aspects of my channel in quantitative finance. So that's a good start. At this point here, I wanted to remind it of a previous conversation that I had where it had given me a number of other topics of conversations, general topics in quantitative finance. So I said, previously, you would advise me to write short content on engaging topics in quantitative finance. And I gave it what it put out to me with a list of topics to cover. Now, I said, could you please construct a list of 100 video ideas and create a table structure with number, topic, and title as the 3-column headers? So it's gone ahead and it's done this. And I did ask for some influence over some popular sites in quantitative finance. So here, Quant Stack Exchange. It's gone ahead and then it's given me a table with number, topic, title. So here I had to prompt it again because it didn't print out 51 to 100. So I said, please continue writing ideas 51 to 100. And it's given me in this table format here. But I need something that I can put to a text file so then I can actually use Python to process it. So I said, can you please convert the table format to text table with a divider of this divisor here? So no problem. Of course, here's a list with the divider. I copy the code and I put it down in a text file. So the second step to this is using OpenAI API. And the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need an API key. So when you go to their website, then you need to click Try ChatGPT or log in. So what that does is that there's actually two platforms. Most people have been interacting with the ChatGPT as we've just been doing in the chatbot format, whereas there is this nice API. So I'm going to click on the API section. I've already got an account. You can sign in here. And then if I click on personal and I look at view API keys, you're going to set up your own API keys here. So you'd come into the user section and obviously you're going to be rate limited if you've only got a free account, but you would create a new set of keys, you would give it a name, and then you would get an OpenAI API key. So that's step number one. The second step is you're going to need Twitter account details. So you're going to need to go, link in the description of the Twitter developer account. You're going to need to give it 250-word description on why you need this account and what you'll be doing. Again, I actually just used ChatGPT. I could not think of a description for 250 words to then justify why I needed this development account. So I said, look, I need this account just because I want to automate my Twitter account. ChatGPT, can you please come up with 250 word description? Enter, got into my Twitter account. Then essentially what you need to do, you need to create an app. I can only have one free environment, one free app under my account, and it is rate limited again, and I can only post up to 1,500 tweets per month. Under that, I then have my specific app details and my keys and tokens. So here I've got consumer keys, API key, and secret. I won't reveal them here, but then you also have authentication tokens, so bearer token and then access token and secret token. So you will need all 5 of these. So just explaining a little bit about what this project is. I have this project set up on a Raspberry Pi, but it could be any server. So it utilizes OpenAI ChatGPT, and we're going to generate those Twitter ideas. We're going to take those lists that we've just come up with. We're going to then process that list. We're going to actually generate the content, and then when we're ready, we're going to post intermittently using the QuantPy API, and we're going to use the AP scheduler module in Python to actually deliver this every 12 hours. Now, the cool thing here is we're actually going to be creating a service that runs on a server. Here I've got a Linux server where we can actually control our bot. We can start, we can stop, we can understand what the status of our Twitter bot is, and it makes it so much easier to handle in the command line. So let's talk about the actual content generation and how we take our list of ideas and process them. So one of the first things that we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the prompt engineering Jupyter notebook. And this is thanks to LangChain prompting template. And we've adapted this from this GitHub repository here. But essentially, I don't want to have to develop my prompting method every time. I want to be able to call this as a processing function in Python. So let's understand what the LangChain library is and how we can do some prompt engineering to get the correct response and the Twitter format that we need. So here I'm importing my dependencies, and from LangChain, pip install LangChain if you don't have it, we're going to be taking the chat open API module, and from the langchain.prompts, we're going to be taking the chat prompt template, the system message prompt template, the AI message prompt template, and the human message prompt template. So the only API key I have here is just the API key for OpenAPI, and you could of course put it here, but I have it to a .env file, which is a little bit safer. I then also have the directory variables, which just map back to my raw data file. So let's take a look at some of the prompt engineering, how I'm actually interacting with ChatGPT. The first thing I need to do, I need to use the LangChain chat open API module and set up the large language model. We're going to initialize our large language model with a temperature, the learning rate of 0.3. You can try different variations to try and get the best out of it and try and encourage creativity. We're sending in our open API key, and we're also choosing the model name. Now there are many models to choose from, and if we look back at our developer API account. So what you can see is that there are many different models that we can use, and all the documentation on what they do and what they're best at is specific and specified within the documentation here on their website. But here we're giving, it's said that the best recommendation is the Turbo 3.5 Turbo account for the free account. And this is the latest one. So that's what I'm going to be using. Here's my main function where I'm going to be generating a response. So let's set the context. The variables that I have coming in is my large language model that I've just set up. I want to give it a quant topic from my big list, and I want to give it a quant title. So let's understand what we're trying to do. We're going to get out a tuple of a long response and a short response from ChatGPT, and I'll explain about why we're getting 2 responses back in a second. The first thing we need to understand is the system template, and this is the template that we're giving OpenAI to give context about what it has to do and who it has to be while responding to the human input messages. So I'm telling the system, OpenAPI, that you are an incredibly wise and smart quantitative analyst that lives and breathes the world of quantitative finance. Your goal is to write short form content for Twitter given a topic in the area of quantitative finance and a title from the user. So the response tone, I want the tone to be have an active voice and be opinionated. Your tone should be serious with a hint of wit and sarcasm. And this has been adapted from that GitHub repository like we have in the link above. We want to be extremely clear and concise with the format. Respond with phrases no longer than 2 sentences, and do not respond with emojis. So we also want the response content to include examples of where this is used in quantitative finance space. And if you can't answer, say, sorry, I'll have to ask the Quant Finance gods. So the response template I can actually specify. And here's where the prompt engineering really comes down to. I want a specific format that I can always use for my Twitter feed. So the response format, I again asked ChatGPT what it recommended, and it said for an engaging article, I should have a hook, an intro, an explanation, an application of where it's used, a closing statement, a call to action, and then an engagement section. So no problem. I use that template and I've given it here in the system instruction. So I want a captive one-liner, a brief introduction to the topic. I want to simplify the core idea, note real-world relevance, reflective one-liner, short engagement call, and a quick question. So this is my response template that I want every tweet to follow. Now, how do I adapt that as a system message? Well, I use the system message prompt template and I say from template and I pass that big string. Then what I need to do, I need to provide the human template. And the only 2 things the human's going to be providing, again, is the topic and the title. And I do often add that keep the total response under 200 words total. So I'm just really telling ChatGPT that it needs to be concise, because for Twitter, we've only got 280 characters per post. So that's important. So here I'm using the human message prompt template from template, exactly the same as again, but you'll see here that I have these curly brackets which indicate variables. And I can use the prompt template from prompt template structure to pass in the input variables that I'm going to pass as the human messaging interface. So the way that I can then construct that chat prompt template with both the system message prompt and then the human message prompt is by using the chat prompt template. And we're going to use the dot from messages, and we're going to combine just in a list format those 2 prompt messages in the correct order. So system message first and then the human message prompt. Now, obviously we haven't passed in the correct topic and title yet, but in my variable name, I have that I am passing the quant topic and the quant title. So I'm going to say to get a final completed chat, my final prompt, I'm going to use this chat prompt template that I've created, and I need to pass in these 2 variables. So I'm going to pass in topic, and that's going to be equal to my quant topic, and then title is going to be equal to the quant title variable that I'm passing in with my overall function. Then I'm going to use the 2 messages. Now I actually need to pass this to my large language model. So pass this template that's been formatted with a correct quant topic, correct quant title, and then I want to actually get the response content. So the first response is coming straight from the large language model with my final prompt in brackets .content. Now, I tested this multiple times, and what I was getting is a very large response. It's very hard to control the length of ChatGPT's essentially creativity. So what I'm doing is now I'm going to construct an AI template to pass back the response of OpenAI. So I'm going to tell OpenAI that it has given me this first response. And the way that I can do that, I can create an AI message prompt template from LangChain. So I'm now creating that template as the first response. And then I'm going to add another human input. And this additional human input is just going to be a prompt reminder that the length was way too long and that I need it much shorter. So I'm saying this was good, but way too long. Please make your response more concise and much shorter. Make phrases no longer than 15 words in total. Please maintain the existing template. And here is where I'm really specifying that I need it to be Twitter length. I need it to be less than 280 characters. So now I've got that human message prompt template. All I need to do is then construct my long chat prompt template from messages. So again, here's where we combine with a list, my system message now, then my human message, my first AI message prompt response, the message that it gave us back, and then the reminder prompt. So now we're going to complete that chat again, formatting it with the correct quant topic and quant title. And then again, we pass that whole thing back through the API. And essentially I want my first response and my short response. So let's give it an example here. We're going to run through the generated response, first response and short response for quantitative topic. And let's see what we get back. We're going to get first response and short response. So I've got the hook, I've got intro, and then I've got application. I have the structure that I need, but you can see it's just returned in one big text and it's pretty long. Let's take a look at the short response. The short response is obviously much shorter. Excellent. So now that I have these text strings, how can I actually process them? Well, the way I'm going to be looking for my template key features. So they're just something that I'm going to have as my key list, and they're dependent on what I had in this structure here. So I'm going to take hook, I'm going to take intro, explanation, application, closing, action, and engagement, and I'm going to search for them, knowing that they come in this string every time. So I just provide that as a key list, and I'm going to extract the tweet, and I'm going to save it down as a dictionary. So in Python, I have the template as a dictionary. I'm going to enumerate through my key list, and I'm going to build up this dictionary with my key list. So what does that look like? Well, essentially at the end of the day, I get, when I pass the extract tweet and I pass the correct key list with this function, then I get back my dictionary with the hook as the key, well, with all the important template parameters as the key, and then my values are the correct statement. So doing that for the short response as well, you can see much shorter than a long response. So at this point you might be going, okay, great. So now we've come up with a way to actually process using prompt engineering our tweets through one function called generate_tweets. That's great. Now I need to pass the actual quant topics in a systemized fashion. How do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to process our raw text file. So moving back to Visual Studio Code, what did our raw text files look like? Well, if we take a look at our raw text files, essentially they were in this format. I have number, topic, title. I've got these underscores here. So the first two rows of this is useless, and then I have my number, topic, title, and I just have that in a format down to 100. And I also did this a second time in context ideas. So we've got two files that look like this, and all I want to do is process them and put them back in a systemized format. So how am I going to process those files? Well, essentially I'm just going to open them with the file open function of the raw text file, and I defined the location before with the read. Then I'm going to run through by enumerating the file read lines, and I'm going to get back the line number and the line. If the line number is greater than 1, because remember the first two rows had the headings and the underlines, then I'm going to start processing. How do I process? I'm going to split on the line divisors, and then I'm going to capture those items from this list. The first item is going to be the tweet number, then I'm going to get the tweet topic, and then I'm going to process the quant title. I need to store this in a logical way in a dictionary so I can process it. So my dictionary is quant tweets. So here I've got the tweet number is the index, and I'm actually creating a sub dictionary where then I can define the topic and the title for easy reference. I'm then just going to print out a string representation of what this looks like so you can understand that. I can then also create a quantity tweets text file whereby I'm going to run through this dictionary in an organized way and then save it down in the new format. Format that I want for saving these down is going to be 6 parts. One's going to be the tweet number, one's going to be the topic, one's going to be the title. Then I have 3 flags, which are false, false, false at the start. and we'll explain why that is. So now I've saved down my file for Quant tweets into this text file, and I've got all these false flags. Now, why did I do that? Well, I'll show you a completed version of what it looks like at the end. I'm using this as my database. I'm being a bit of a cheapskate. I can't be bothered to set up a SQLite database or a Postgres or anything like that. I'm just doing it and saving it down to a text file. Very simple, very quick, easy to do. So we're not storing that much data and it's not that hard. So this is going to be my database. Now the flags are going to be for the first one, have you sent it? True or false? Second one is going to be, have you generated it from OpenAI? True or false? And then the third one is less about a flag and more about storing the actual Twitter tweet structure. So as you can see in my completed structure, I've sent this one true, I have generated it true, and then I have my tweet structure as a dictionary. Now for other ones, you can see here, I haven't sent it, but I have generated it true, and you can see the dictionary. For other structures, you can see it's still false, 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 because I haven't done anything with them. Speaking about the structure now, so I'm going to have my call OpenAI. So I've got this module set up called QuantPy _feed. So the module has a couple of files. The first one that's important is just going to be the call OpenAI, which we have already been using. So that's what we've just, the generate tweet function that we've just come up with in Jupyter Notebook. The second important one is going to be process tweets. So in this script here, in process tweets, what we're going to do is we're going to define those keywords, our key count functions, and we're going to define those extract tweets and then the generate tweets. So for everything that we did in the Jupyter Notebooks, this is where we actually execute it. So when I generate a tweet, I want to do some logging. I want to generate my response from a specific tweet topic and my tweet title. I then want to generate them and I want to store it down into a dictionary format. And then I want to be able to pass this dictionary format into some kind of structured data format that's easy to work with. And one smart way to do that in Python is through data classes. So we're going to have classes that hold my data structure. So here we've got data classes. First, I've got two enums, which are just flags for the first one. So I've got a Boolean flag, a true or false. And then I've also got a tweet type, which is going to be single or threaded. So because I want to define, are we going to send as a single thread? Is it under 280 characters? Or can I send it as an actual thread whereby I'm sending an initial message and then I'm replying back to it? So I want to set that as a flag and as a possible setting for this Twitter bot. So now I need a way to actually store my tweets. So as before, we had a dictionary of our key titles. So naturally it makes sense to have those templates, those keys, as our actual attributes of this class object. So I've got a hook, an intro, explanation, application, closing, action, engagement, as all strings, and I want to be able to pass through a dictionary. So the way that I can pass through a dictionary and get back an instance of this class is through the class method. I'm going to have a from dictionary, pass the class, I want to return the class back, and then I want to be able to pass my Twitter dictionary. And all I'm doing is that I'm identifying which are the keys within the dictionary that correspond to my attribute of this class instance, and I'm creating that class. I then also want to be able to have a method where I can take an instance of this class and then send it to a text. So I'm going to use this function when I'm then about to send the tweet, and I want to be able to create a text version that I can send directly to Twitter. So the track tweet is an object class for just tracking the status of individual tweets. So here we're going to have an ID, we're going to have a topic, we're going to have a title, we're going to have the sent status, the generation status, and then the tweet. So that you'll notice that again, that's the structure of our text file that we're storing. We're going to have a from string generate because we want to be able to read and write back to our text file. So if we want to be able to take a tweet line in, split it on this horizontal divisor, and then get back the ID, the topic, the title, the sent status, the gen status, and the tweet. And of course, we had the next line symbol, which we're not going to be using. So then we want to convert the status and the generation status to a true or false enum representation. So all I'm doing is I'm saying, is this name true? And if it's true, then give it the boolean.true, or if it's not, it'll be false, and therefore give it the boolean.false. And I do the same thing for sent status as generation status. Then I need to initialize a class without the tweet because it doesn't have a tweet to begin with and it just has false. So I initialize the class, and you can see that the way that I've been able to enable that is I have the field representation for the tweet attribute as false. So init false. And the reason is because when we're first reading these things in, I haven't generated them. Then I just want to indicate that if I do have the gen status as a boolean, if it is true, then I need to actually add that I do have the tweet. So I'm going to say tweet from dictionary loads, and I'm going to take that string representation of the dictionary. I'm going to load it so it's recognized within Python as a dictionary, and then I'm going to call the from dictionary to get the tweet class. So I'm just adding my tweet object to the tweet attribute within the track tweet. And then I'm getting my track tweet back. Again, here I have some methods. I've got toString, which is going to be helpful for returning a string that we can save down within the text file. And then I've got some update status. So when we actually send the status, I'll call this function and I can just update with the new status, and then we can update our gen status when we've actually generated it using OpenAI. So our tweet queue, all I'm doing now is taking all those track tweets and I'm just getting a big list. So this is going to be a way that we can manage our tweet pipeline for processing, generating, and posting. So there's been a bit of a hierarchy. We have a tweet, then we're tracking that tweet, and now I'm going to have a huge queue. So this data class is just going to manage that queue so I can handle all the processing, generating, and posting. We're going to have some properties. I want a subset of all these track tweets. I want to know which ones have not been sent, which ones have not been generated, and then I want tweets, a list of tweets that are ready for sending. So that haven't been sent and that are generated. I want a way that I can actually add new tweets to this list. So on queue and then dequeue. So we've got a bit of a queuing methodology for this class. I also want a way that I can then take my text file and then create track tweets and therefore tweets, and then a way that I can go to the text file and save everything back down. So in summary, this file is just our data structure on how we're then saving, reading, and creating classes so we can process and use them in an efficient way within our code. So if we look at, if I just process my tweets, I'm going to take a text file, which is going to be our raw data file that we've just come up with. I'm then going to use the tweet queue. I'm going to, from text file, pass this text file, and I'm going to get my my sets of objects of my track tweets, and then they're going to have individual tweets attached to them. And then I'm going to define my large language model, and I want to be able to generate tweets. So I'm going to pass the generate tweets function that we have up here. I'm going to pass the large language model, the tweet queue, and then the text file. Then within the generate tweets now, I'm iterating through that subsection of my tweet queue for the property tweets not generated. So I'm running through a list of the tracked tweets for the tweets that have not been generated. I'm then generating a response using my gen response function before, where I'm just passing attributes of the tweet track as the topic and the title. I get those responses back in the short and long responses. This entire part here is just about ensuring that for each response, for my hook, for my intro, for my explanation, that it's no longer than 280 characters. If the long response is less than 280 characters, I want to take that. If the short response is less than 280 characters, I'll take that. If the short response is longer than that, I'm just going to have to cut it off and the sentence won't make a lot of sense. But there's not much I can do here if I want to have a hands-off approach automation and not have to worry about it. So there's a value issue with the tweet. I want to pass it to the log so I can understand more. So now we're talking about the Twitter feed bot. So now we've got a tweet type and I'm getting my thread. I've got my directories. I'm loading my Twitter API keys and I've got my OpenAI key. So I'm setting up basic logging. Now I have a class which is going to be a class that helps us organize our code and manage the shared state across our entire app. So here I'm going to initialize this class. So this class is going to be a processing class primarily. We're going to initialize it with the Twitter API. The Twitter API we're going to be using is Tweepy. So here I have to pass the client, which is my bearer key, my consumer key, my API key, my API secret, and then my access token and my access token secret. I'm also going to initialize the large language model, which is going to be my chat open API, again with the parameters that we had talked about before in our Jupyter notebook. I'm initializing my text file with the function that I had initialized at the top of this script. And then I'm also initializing my tweet queue. So I'm taking my tweet queue from text file. As I initialize, I'm using this initialized text file value to get my tweet queue in that class object. So I want a few things. I want to be able to process tweets, generate the tweets from here. I want to be able to verify tweets to send. So I want to make sure that I actually have a tweet to send. One is ready and one's ready for sending. So here I'm using that property tweets ready for sending. If it's equal to 0, I need to process tweets. Process tweets calls the generate tweets function, as we've just talked about before, and it saves it down to the text file. So post thread is going to be when we want to post in thread and we're going to send our tweet. So we've got our tweet and I want a dictionary to be able to pass it. So I'm taking my structure and then I'm using the data class as dictionary to get it back to a dictionary format. I'm going to run through my tweet threads as items. So they're going to be items in the dictionary. I'm going to get back my key and I'm going to get back my thread that I want to send. So if the key is the first one, so the hook, I want to just send that as a create the tweet. However, if it's anything after that, I want to then take that latest ID, last tweet ID, it's going to be equal to that underscore tweet thread. And I want to pass that through this function again, through this iterator for loop to then get the last ID. And the way that I do that, I can subsection that. I can take the attribute .data and then I can get the key ID. So I'm then going to create the tweet text exactly the same, but this time I'm including an extra parameter called in reply to tweet ID, where I'm just getting the last ID and I'm saving that down every time I run through this for loop for the last tweet thread that I've used. Now to post an individual tweet, all I'm going to do is go tweet text, use my, my previous function that I've created to get a tweet to text format. And then I'm just going to create my tweet by sending it with the Twitter API. If it's true, then I'm going to make some logs. If there's an exception, I want to log the warning. I'm going to create one extra function, which is going to be to save the file down. So I've got my tweet queue. I'm going back to text file and I'm going to save it to my self.txt file. Logging latest version of tweet saved down. So running my feed, my Twitter bot. So I've got this function. And if this is the main function running, I want to call this function. So I'm going to first step to import the Twitter bot, initialize this class, which is going to help me process. So ensure that there are tweets to send. So I want to verify the tweet to send. So I have this search next tweet function, and all that does is that searches through, sorts a list based on the tweet ID. And it then just takes a sorted list of all the tweet queues and then gets the first element of the tweets not sent function. Once I have my quant tweet track, then I need to either post as a single tweet or as a thread. So this is just going to be an if-else statement on the enum type that I created before, which is the tweet type. And so here, before I'd made the settings at the top of this file equal to thread, therefore we're going to post thread. So if twitter.postThread, and then I give it that file, then all I'm going to do is go quant tweet track.update sent status. That was a lot of code, but I just tried to run through all the aspects. There are just 4 components. We've got the call open API, we've got the process, the tweets, we've got the actual Twitter class structures, which handles the data, which are just data classes, a way for us to define what the tweets are, how to track them, and then to put them into a queue that we can then process them with. And then I had my main function, which was my Twitter bot, my main script. So now I need a systematic way to actually call that entire module, which I've called QuantPy_feed. So here we're going to be using the AP scheduler package from Python, and we're going to be using the scheduler's background scheduler. So this is just a main function that I'm going to be running, which is on the highest level of my application. And I want to schedule a background scheduler with the daemon. I want to run once this function so that I can publish and make sure that my Twitter bot has actually been deployed. And then once that runs once and I actually send a tweet, then from then onwards, it's going to add a scheduler using the scheduler add job for this function. And I've set an interval of every 12 hours. Could make this 24, could make this once a week, whatever you want. Here I've got the start scheduler, and I'm starting the scheduler and I'm creating an infinite loop. And I'm just going to keep holding this until it's interrupted. So now I'm just on my Twitter server. So this is a Raspberry Pi setup. I won't talk about how I've done that today because I've put all the details within my GitHub repository within the README file on how to set that up. But here's essentially the processing of all the tweets. As you can see, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we've got this status bot, which I can call, and then I can also stop my Twitter service at any time, and we can check the status and we can see that the bot has been stopped, or we can start the Twitter bot service. So checking the status again, we can see that it's live and going. So through this methodology, once deployed, you can then use the operating service services to actually start and stop your Twitter bot. So now that mine's in production, it's very easy to let it be, and for a number of days, I'm going to be able to sit here and be twittering away. So now, because I have a server where I have my Twitter bot deployed on my Raspberry Pi, I don't need to worry about content generation in quantitative finance for my Twitter account. It's automated. I'm using OpenAI to get and produce my Twitter content based off a title and a topic. I'm then being able to use and process that information to then publish this intermittently every 12 hours until I run out of Twitter ideas. So hopefully you got a lot out of this. Again, on my GitHub, I have all the information about how to deploy this service. GitHub repository is going to be linked into the description of this video. Again, you could change this to be any topic. You just need to go through that prompt engineering Jupyter notebook, change up the topic that you're interested in, and pass in different titles and topics to the actual generate response function. To then deploy it on a server, then you can follow these steps to see the deployment steps and set up your service. Now, I appreciate this was a little bit different content to what I'm usually doing, but I did want to publish how I've created this Twitter bot because I think it might be useful for other people. So again, all the code is linked on my GitHub. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, see you later.